Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hello, Fiona. She's joining us live here back on the podcast and Zoomcast. It's Fiona McAllister. Yes, our image consultant and owner of her own company called Style by Fiona, based out of Calgary, but she can help you worldwide with her style. That's stylebyfiona.com. And welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
Good to see you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, if you're the first time listening today, I should let you know that I'm taking a new way to look at fashion. So yes, I'm an image. Try that again. Yes, I am an image consultant, and I'm also a certified counselor. And what I help women and men do is learn how to understand their emotional connection with their clothes so that they can dress more authentically and what's the word I'm looking for? Like being conscious of it, being aware. There's a word for that, but it's not coming to me at the moment.
Aw.
Yeah. So that's in a nutshell what I do. And in order to do that, we both look at the physical side of how to dress as well as the emotional reactions, I guess you could say, that our brain has to what we look, how we look, what we wear, and how all of that fits together. Yeah.
Interesting. Why do we choose what we choose? Yeah. How do you break it down to the psychology of it? Let's hear this.
Okay. Well, there's a lot that gets involved in choosing what we wear. And I think the beginning of it all is really kind of boils down to our self-worth and our self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And that can come from any number of places, right? When we're small, we learn our self-esteem based on usually what our parents tell us, and that's where it starts. And sometimes if we have parents who were healthy and loving, then we can start off with a pretty good self-esteem. And sometimes that wasn't our situation growing up, so self-esteem takes a bit of a kick if mom and dad gave us certain rules, like nobody ever says, well, I shouldn't say that. There are, unfortunately,
People, you're like, wait a sec, yeah.
But some parents where they say, I don't love you, sadly. But most of the time, it's an implied rule, like we're all lawyers, you're going to be a lawyer, or those kinds of family patterns. And when we make choices that break away from the expectations of family, parents, society, whoever it is, it challenges us to really look at how we think about ourselves and how we feel about ourselves, right? And so when we do that, it can be really hard to maintain a sense of self, because you have to kind of build your sense of self outside of the family or outside of your group of friends or outside of your religion, or maybe not outside, but is a separate bubble, if that makes any sense. So that you have your idea of who you are as a person, and then how you interact with the family, the world around you. It's so that it doesn't be that my family is who I am, or my friends are who I am, right? And when we've gotten stuck in those kinds of thinking patterns or feeling patterns, then the clothes that we choose to wear are usually based on other people's opinions, on what they want us to wear, what they think we should wear to fit into whatever group it is that you feel you need to belong to in order to be safe, right? And so the start of, even though most of us have never really thought about it this way, the start of what we choose to wear really does stem from our self-esteem and our self-worth. Because if we feel like crap about ourselves, then usually two things happen. One of two things happen. We either will dress to hide, so only wear all black or whatever, or the other thing that can happen is we let go completely of our appearance. And when I say let go, I don't mean like in a shameful way. I just mean that because we don't feel good about ourselves, why would we bother to look nice? And so that's another thing that can happen. I'm sure there's more that I'm not aware of that
And
I
by the way,
will
if anyone does want to chime in about this or have any other questions for Fiona, you can call us at 631-307-4010, 631-307-4010. Feel free to call in at any point. Go ahead.
yes, please. Absolutely. I'm here to help us change the way we understand fashion and how we can use it as a tool for healing, really, and not just how we look on the outside, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's many different things that fashion can be as well. It can be a form of communication. It can be a form of comfort, um, both psychologically and physically.
hmm
It can help us with our body image and body acceptance. Like there's just so many psychological things that fashion can do for us that are just barely being started to be researched in the academic world, right? And I mean, I've been doing image consulting for the last 12 years, and I've seen all of these sorts of things in my work with individual people. And so I'm so happy now that academia has finally gotten on board, at least a little bit. There's a few little pockets that fashion is not this frivolous thing that, I mean, everybody wears clothes, right? Like, so at some point in your life,
Yeah.
well, I guess my biggest thing that people have had said to me is they're like, well, I don't have any kind of connection with my clothes. I just get dressed in the morning. I said, okay, that's fine. But that is still actually a form of connection with your clothes. You use clothes in the basis form of physical protection and not being naked, right?
Yeah.
So it's still a relationship or a connection with your clothes. But
True.
for you, or not you specifically, but for that person, it's just a matter of that this is they use clothes for its basic function, right?
True.
And that can also be related to self-esteem concerns. I mean, for some people, it legitimately is just like, I don't care, I just need to not be naked, right?
Yeah.
And they would rather spend their time and energy on whatever their pursuits are. But that can also be a way of hiding and avoiding doing the deeper work when it comes to finding out who who am I? How do I want to portray myself, right? So yeah, there's just different ways that one can work when it comes to the psychological side of things. So yeah, in the essence, it all starts with how we feel about ourselves. And when we start saying, hey, maybe it is important to care about how I look, that can be really daunting because it's a huge step, especially if you have no idea about what works for you or what doesn't. And that's another reason why people stay in the just using clothes as a basic function kind of relationship. Excuse me, because it's too scary, right? Like it can be very scary to try anything new or try a new look. How are the people in my life going to respond to me? Are they going to reject me? Are they going to accept me? Are they still going to love me if I change the way I dress? If I change the way do anything, my hair, if I change the way I act? So much of our childhood is spent protecting ourselves and making sure we're safe, right? And then when we grow up, if the patterns that kept us safe no longer actually are helping us, it can be very, very scary and challenging to move past those beliefs about yourself, right? Like it can actually, oh, sorry, we got someone
no,
on?
like my mother, I think I might have told you this before. She always wore black, right, when she was alive. And she was very depressed, always very what's the word? Not secure at all, insecure. She was very and she always felt best in black because she looked thinner, she felt better. And that's why I said, oh my gosh, I said, I think black means you are depressed or you are hiding something. I think clearly that part of it all, but she wore black like it was like not morbid. What's the name? Morticia, like the Addams family, all the time. Black. I'm like, I'm surprised your wedding dress wasn't black, Mom, when you got married. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and black, when people use black in that regard, it's actually a form of protection, right? Because if you don't wear color, people don't notice you. And then you don't have to deal with that kind of attention. And so, I mean, whatever your quote unquote uniform is, clothing can be used as a source of security emotionally, not just about how you look, but, for people who, for example, if it's all right if I use your mom since you brought her up,
Sure.
if she was, feeling very self-conscious, self-critical, depressed, like you're saying, then black is the safe choice, right?
Yeah.
So then for her, black becomes a source of protection and security, for her to protect her emotional self and the connection that she has with her emotional self. And I mean, the reason why I know so much about this is because I actually had a really dark period in my life about 10 years ago where I was even contemplating suicide. I didn't have a plan, but it was certainly in the realm of consideration, I guess you could say. And so I understand when people say, well, what do you know about depression? I'm like, a lot more than I would ever want to, but I understand because I've been there, right? And the thing that started me on this whole connection and this whole path about putting all of these things together was that I followed the advice of the fashion industry, which was look better, feel better. And yes, to a certain extent, we certainly do feel better when we look better. But my problem is that I had gone to image consulting training and I learned how to make myself look stunning, look amazing on the outside, but I still had all of my undealt with trauma and childhood concerns and whatever on the inside, right? And so it's doing both that I find has the best results for people when they do the hard, and it's really grueling sometimes to do those emotional works. I mean, I was in counseling for 7 years every week. Now, maybe not everybody needs it quite that badly, but I felt pretty broken when I got to the point where I was thinking about suicide, right? I was like, it took a long time to get there. And so it wasn't a quick fix to get out. You know what I'm saying? And so my goal in all of this and saying all of that is to help women understand that taking care of the outside can be a stepping stone to learning how to take care of the inside too. So if we haven't, and the other thing is if sometimes we've learned that our value only comes from how we look, right? And so as we age, as we have babies, as our bodies change, go through, menopause, all of those things, or start the process of menopause, all of that stuff, is that we may feel like, especially for people who were in the beauty industry, sometimes getting older can be really challenging because they feel that their worth came from the way they looked, and so did their paycheck for a long time, right? And so it's embracing the whole process of life and using clothing as a support to help us learn how to still love our bodies even as they change, and not allow that critical inner voice to be so loud, because it's so loud. You put on extra weight. Oh, you got cellulite. I'm like, yeah, well, the only person who doesn't have cellulite has got it photoshopped off. So
Exactly.
or they're still 14, right?
It's so true. But yeah, it's something that's a lot to be said for. But I want to also just remind everyone how we can reach you and just let you know our lines are open 631-307-4010. And again, that's 631-300-4010. So would you mind telling us again how we can reach you personally?
Sure. You can email me at fiona@stylebyfiona.com. And you can also text or call at 403-966-5896. And I'm on most of the socials. There's probably some new ones that I don't know about, but and my handle, is that the word? I don't even know. But my name on all of the socials is Style by Fiona. So YouTube, if you type in, go into the app, and I probably spend the most time on YouTube and Instagram, but I'm on a few of the other ones. At least my face is there.
Good. Well, thank you for being here. All right, let's continue. So psychology of color, right? That's what we're talking about today. And What would you say someone who's wearing lighter or patterns? Like, what does that say about someone? That they're more open to things, more vibrant, more, how would you describe that? Right? If we're saying black is more like depressed and negative, what's vibrant color? Like purple, like pink.
Those ones are usually used in one of two ways. They're either somebody who is very energetic and outgoing, or they can be used also as a protection in a way for people who um, have insecure feelings, but they deal with it the opposite way by becoming arrogant and um, uh, yeah. So insecurity either turns inward or outward most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So when people are turning inward on their insecurities, they attack themselves, they end up depressed, like I had done. And people who are insecure and push it outwards usually end up attacking other people. And so sometimes they will dress very vibrantly and buoyantly or very perfectionistically,
Yep.
so that nobody can see past their armor. No one can see the weakness. No one can see their what am I like their yeah, well, just that no one can see what they perceive to be their weaknesses. And so sometimes, and this is why it's so, I guess, important to be aware of how you feel about yourself. So are you using your insecurity and pushing out your energy in an outward way, or have you got to the point where well, it's usually some kind of a breaking point for people, whether or in life transition, whether it's like I ended up very depressed. Some people, it happens to them if they're having babies or job changes or a family member dies. So these kind of things that cause us those psychological crises, right, in our
Yep.
lives. And then that's when people will, well, they'll have the choice of, do I look deeper at myself or do I continue with the old patterns? And unfortunately, a lot of us continue with the old patterns until it gets too painful to keep doing that. And then we'll learn to move forward. But yeah, so like bright colors like pinks and oranges and all of those, when it comes to the psychology of that sort of thing, it's usually, like I said, either people who are using it as a cover for insecurity, but they're pushing their energy outward, or it's people who've done all the hard work to become comfortable with who they are and love themselves in the body they've got. Then those folks will use those colors as a genuine expression of vibrancy and who they are. Yeah.
Wow. All right, good to know. And could you change your mood with psychology of color? Like, if you start wearing something different, does that bring out something different in you? Like more
Sure.
happiness or more joy? Or would you say that works that way too?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I know I'm kind of using broad stroke statements here, and there's all sorts of everything in between that stuff, right? But yeah, absolutely. So when we were talking about clothing as a comfort factor, you can use, like if you're having a drab sort of day, you can use bright colors to help lift your mood, right? Because when you look in the mirror, you're like, oh, I don't feel good, but damn, I look good, or that sort of thing. And in order to answer your previous conversation about patterns and stuff, when people wear patterns, it usually shows a willingness to try things, right? Because if you stick with black and just solid colors, then that in itself is also a way to be safe, depending on what the colors are. But people who wear bright, bold patterns, like I said, they're either genuinely really vibrant for the most part, or they are trying to be that way. And you can start the process of how you want to change the inside by changing the way you dress on the outside to help you move forward in that direction, right? So it's not either or. There's like a whole process of moving from who you think you are to who you want to be. So when people say aspirational fashion, I don't mean it in the way that sometimes it's understood that if you wear this clothes and you wear this brand, that makes you who you are, because that's obviously not true. But in the same kind of idea, but with a little bit of a different twist, we can use fashion as a way to say, okay, I want to be more outgoing, or I want to try new things that I haven't done. And for how that looks for different people is different for their personality, right? So for somebody who's got a more reserved nature, just because of who they are, and that, no judgment on any of that, trying something bold for them might be going for hoop earrings instead of studs, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So yeah, I try to help people move out of their comfort zones, but in a timing and a way that is acceptable to them.
Got
That
it.
makes sense.
No, it
Because if
does.
you push too hard too fast, then it can
But
get scary.
even psychology of color, like what about people that dye their hair different colors?
Well, that's a couple of different things. People, when we're dyeing our hairs, it's well, if you're going for like big and bold colors like I am, it's because think my regular hair is kind of boring and I want to have more fun in my life. Because I have like a dusty blonde is my natural color. And I don't know, I was just like, I'm bored with this. I need some more vibrancy in my appearance. And sometimes people just want to change it up a little bit. Like, I think when we're dyeing hair, again, that can either be a safety or an adventurous sort of thing, right?
It's adventurous. I like it. I wish I had that much adventure in me. Boring.
Because for what I would say it would be safety, it would be if somebody is going gray and they don't want to appear gray, or they can't accept that they're aging a little bit more yet. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's just being aware of what you're doing, right? Like, and I think there's no reason why people shouldn't dye their hair if they want to hide their gray, but just be aware of it. You're like, okay, am I dyeing the gray because I don't want to appear older? Or am I dyeing the gray because, well, that's usually pretty much the only reason why people dye gray. But sometimes if they're doing it for more adventure or whatever, they'll be like, I love my gray, but I'm going to put some green streaks in it. I don't know, right?
I like it. All right. And by the way, the lines are still open. We have 5 minutes left. You don't have to call, but it would be nice. Fiona McAllister is joining us here, our style expert, and we're talking psychology of color, but you can ask any questions. 631-307-4010, 631-307-4010, if you do have any questions. And you're working with people virtually all over to help them, right? And in person, obviously, you're in Calgary.
Yes.
And do you get hired by companies and corporations to help brand and help people dress in a sense for like corporate things? Because it's important in the workplace how you want people to dress. Is that something that you do?
Not yet, but I'm certainly open to that for sure. Because sometimes people have a lot of well, I mean, I do that, but on an individual level, right? Like I haven't been hired by a corporation to talk about dress codes or any of those kinds of things yet.
Yeah.
But I have had a lot of people say, okay, well, what's appropriate for this kind of work? What's appropriate for that kind of work, right? And so it's about the dress codes. And because I know in at least in North America, we've kind of slid in a not so great direction when it comes to the way we dress. But you meet people from Europe and they look amazing, right? Compared to us walking around in our grocery store in our sweatpants, right?
We do.
And they're like, I would never go out in public like that. And so, yeah, I certainly would be open to doing that sort of thing with companies or whatever. But that's on the list of future things, I guess.
Aw, yeah, it's true. Why not? And on a daily basis, because you're in the business, like how does it work with your closet? Like, because you're so involved and you're so eclectic and you could pick and choose, but do you get sick of, are you the type of person that needs new clothes all the time, or you just rework things and make it work and like recycle?
A little bit of both.
Okay. Cool.
I do tend to buy new clothes probably every couple months. I'll pick up a new pair of shoes or a new shirt or something. But I guess because I'm very particular about what I buy, and because I've been doing this for so long that everything I buy kind of already self-matches my closet. So when I go shopping, I have in my mind, okay, what can I wear this with? How can I style this so that I don't waste money on clothes that aren't going to suit me or don't look good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself is one of the very valuable things about seeing a style professional. So you know all the particulars of your body, so you know all your colors, so that your wardrobe kind of grows together naturally that way.
Yeah.
Because when you know your colors, you don't tend to buy things that are not going to match with what you are, or at least harmonize or coordinate. They don't have to be an exact match, right? With what you already own. So, yeah, I mean, I've got everything from white tie down to sweatpants, right? Like,
Good. I didn't know if you had to look good all the time, because are you that person in the supermarket that will wear sweats, or you don't?
sometimes, but usually only if it's an emergency or if I'm like renovating my house, then I'll go to, because I'm not going to change and put on makeup and stuff. And I just got to go to the hardware store to pick up a light bulb or a paintbrush or whatever, right? But yeah, I do tend to put more effort than is maybe strictly necessary in how I look, but I'm in the field, right? And I'm kind of like a walking advertisement, I guess you could say, for my business, right? So
Yeah.
it's important, at least in this business, to kind of look the part, because if you're like, hey, I'm a style consultant, and you're wearing like a ripped t-shirt and ripped jeans, people are going to be like, really?
Yeah, but everyone has their own style, right? And everything goes. Like the corporate world used to dress all professional. Now people are more laid back. So you've seen style change go through a lot, right? Where's it heading next?
Where's which heading?
Style, fashion. Is there something in particular that stands out more than something else that's happening?
Oh my goodness, I am not a fashion forecaster. I don't know
No?
exactly how to answer that. I specialize in helping people with their own individual style, but I'm certainly not on the front ends of what gets decided is coming down the pipe in the next couple of years. But what I would hope is that as a society and a world even, that we take a turn to to kind of what we talked about today, to be able to use fashion as a source of healing and self-expression, even within the different dress codes and guidelines and uniforms that you might have to wear to work. And if you can't do it at work, then do it on your free time, right? Because so much of the fashion industry at the top levels is, and obviously it has to be profit driven, because if you don't make money, you can't have a company. And I'm not saying anything bad about profit driven. I just hope that it can shift as well to carrying more clothes that are good for a broader range of body types and sizes and colors and all of those sorts of things. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. And appreciate our time here together. I wish someone called in, but they didn't. But
That's
we
all
had a
right.
good conversation anyway. We get to learn more about you, the psychology of color. And Fiona, if you are interested and someone's interested in your services, how do we reach out to you?
My number is 403-966-5896, my phone number. So you can call or text me there, and you can email me at fiona@stylebyfiona.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a fantastic day. Always a pleasure speaking with you and learning more from you. I did the black today.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's
It's going to be okay.